The White House, the scene of a 3-hour and 14-minute cabinet meeting by President Trump yesterday. Joe Biden would be lucky to have a 3-minute and 14-second cabinet meeting. Honestly, literally, I mean, when did he even have cabinet meetings? I can't even remember. He had a couple and there were, anyhow, I don't want to, why go there? All right. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. On top of the discussions to end the war with Ukraine, U.S. and Russian officials reportedly working on energy deals. Reuters reporting that these deals are incentives for Moscow to agree to peace with Ukraine. One of the proposals apparently is ExxonMobil re-entering a Russian oil project. The deals were reportedly discussed briefly between President Trump and Vladimir Putin during the Alaska summit. For more, let's bring in the founder of Defense of Democracies and my good friend, Cliff May. Cliff, great to have you. So, look, the U.S. is clearly offering Russia incentives here to get a peace deal with Ukraine. You wonder, though, if any of it is really going to work. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. So good to see you, David. Yeah, you do wonder if it's going to work. If you can do this with carrots, not and you don't need some serious sticks. You got to understand who Vladimir Putin is. And I've been studying Russia, well, for more than half a century. I went there as a teenager many years ago. I was an exchange student there. I was a journalist there. I'm disappointed that after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia doesn't look more like, I don't know, Poland or Czechia or Slovakia or something like that. Putin, he sees himself as the czar. And as the czar, he feels his mission is to restore the Russian Empire. And he has made progress towards that in various ways. Georgia once was a republic. He, in 2008, took two territories away from Georgia, and he pretty much controls the ruling party right now in Georgia. Belarus, which means White Russia, so Putin sees it as part of Russia. It's a vassal state under a dictator, Lukashenko. Ukraine he sees as very much as part, and he wants that country dragged back into the Kremlin's orbit. And I got to tell you, he also doesn't like that Ukraine has been developing as a democracy. I was also over in Ukraine for the last elections they had as an official election observer. They were very proud. They had political parties, they had a free press, they were doing the election in a way that was free and fair. Putin doesn't want to see that across his border, doesn't want his people to see that.
Cliff, I've spent a little bit of time in Russia, and I'm really confused by, and I keep hearing this theme from those who know him and have studied him more extensively, like yourself, that he thinks of himself as Tsar Nicholas, but Nicholas was nothing like him. Nicholas wasn't the same brand of totalitarian dictator, essentially, that Putin is. He seemed to have, at least what I've studied of him, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are big inconsistencies with his style being anything like Nicholas, right? So, and not only that, you add to that same formula that the world has changed so much. It's like he's ignoring some of the biggest elephants in the room.
Okay, so Nicholas is not the one he sees himself as similar to, because Nicholas was the one who the Bolsheviks killed and took, and they brought down the empire. He sees himself as Peter the Great. I would say that's more likely because Peter the Great established Petersburg, which was Leningrad, when I was a student over there. And that went very far west into lands that had been possessed by, for example, the Swedish Empire before that. I also think he's a little bit like Ivan the Terrible, because it was a pretty cruel and ruthless czar. People think that Russia is a nation state. It's not really. It's an empire. It's just an empire that expanded not by ships at sea, but on land. You go east from Russia and you hit one Central Asian nation after another, say Tatarstan. That's part of Russia, but the Tatars are not Russians. Chechnya, you've heard of that. He crushed the revolt in Chechnya. You go all the way east, you get to Vladivostok. What does that mean? Vladivostok. Vlad is conqueror, Vostok is the east, conqueror of the east. So this, you got to understand, this is who he is. And no, he doesn't care about the world moving on. The world hasn't moved on for him. And that's not so odd. He is in an alliance with Xi Jinping. What does Xi Jinping want to do? Wants to take over Taiwan, which is a free, prosperous, dynamic nation. He's also aligned with the Islamic Republic of Iran. What do they want to do? Exterminate Israel, and they will have and continue to have colonies. Lebanon has been, may not be now so much, has been essentially a colony of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And then there's Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang in North Korea. What does he want to do? Take over South Korea. And Putin is helping him, in exchange for which Kim has been giving Putin what? Soldiers to fight and die in Ukraine, and artillery shells, even more important. He makes huge numbers of artillery shells in North Korea.
So, Cliff, you raise an interesting point that Vladimir Putin sees himself as an emperor or a conqueror, which says to me, as an outside observer, that you have to negotiate with him as such, which leads me to the bigger question. Is Vladimir Putin truly negotiating in good faith, or is he just putting up a good face in order to back out at the last minute, which could then leave President Trump with egg on his face?
So he is not negotiating in good faith at this point. I think we know that. We know that from what happened in Alaska. He doesn't want peace. He wants conquest. I think the president has been smart in saying, I don't want to humiliate this guy. I want him to save his face. I get all that. Let's see if we can do this nicely, but I think it's going to take some pressure. One thing that happened in Alaska, I don't know if you noticed this. This is really important. Sergei Lavrov, longtime foreign minister, longtime Putin ally, he shows up in a shirt that has CCCP written on it. Okay, what is that? Those are Cyrillic letters, SSSR. What does that mean? USSR. He was wearing a shirt of the Soviet Union. Why? And Stalin, by the way, Putin has put up Stalin monuments all over Russia, including in the Moscow metro. Why? Not because he's a communist. He's not an anti-communist. He's allied with the most important and most powerful communist party in history, which is in Beijing. They have a no-limits partnership he does with Xi Jinping. But under Stalin, the Russian Empire was its largest because what happened after the end of World War II? The states of Eastern Europe became satellites. Poland, Moldova, Czechoslovakia, all of that. There's a reason why after all these years Finland has joined NATO. And people forget this, in 1939, the Soviet Union went to war with Finland. This was just before World War II, to try to drag Finland back into the Soviet/Russian Empire. So listen, give him plenty of carrots if you want to. That's great. But he's not interested in saying, hey, I got the best darn healthcare plan in Eastern Europe here in Russia. That's not what he wants. You also have to say, listen, there are going to be some serious sticks. President Trump has dealt well with, for example, the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it's not been with sticks. He bombed Fordo, where they were going to build nuclear weapons. In his first term, he killed Qasem Soleimani, the lead terrorist of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm afraid that's how you have to deal with some of these people.
Absolutely. Cliff May, an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
I hope we can have you back.
Absolutely.
We need to get you
I have a lot
back.
more questions.
Oh my goodness, we got czar questions for you. Thank you so much, Cliff. You're dropping knowledge left and right. Actually, yeah, mostly right, but thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thanks,
all the best to you. Oh, we got the salute. Okay, see that? Look at that. Coming up, an about face on the face of an iconic brand. What's old is now new again at Cracker Barrel. We're talking more about the switcheroo on American Sunrise in a moment.